How can we make our supply chains pandemic proof? The business of moving goods from their point of origin to their destination anywhere on earth is no small task, and the risk seems to be growing. In the era of globalization, we can now buy products manufactured in faraway countries from our local stores. What makes it possible? The international supply chains. A typical supply chain not only includes the manufacturers and suppliers, but also transporters, warehouses, retailers, and customers themselves. During a health emergency like coronavirus, if your local grocery stores are running out of essential goods and don't seem to see supply coming, it is a supply chain problem. If medical stores are running out of medicines, it is a supply chain problem. And if hospitals are not being able to get enough medical supplies, PPE kits and medical instruments, it is a supply chain problem. Now you know why it is important to solve this supply chain disruption. For centuries, countries mostly sent finished goods abroad. Olives from Italy, wine from Spain, furs from Canada, and later on cars from Germany, and sewing machines, printing presses, and cash registers from the United States. But now we are in the era of multi-country manufacturing. We get the raw material from one country, manufacture components in another one, and assemble all of those components to build devices like laptops or smartphones in a third country. These multi-country manufacturing processes have made our global supply chains much more complicated. When a component is produced exclusively in one country or one region, or in some cases even in one factory, businesses around the world can suddenly find themselves without vital inputs. For example, at the time of writing this script, our world is in the middle of coronavirus pandemic, and disruptions in the production of medical supplies are already evident in the countries around the world. Hospitals and healthcare workers are at the risk of being infected by the virus because masks and protective equipment are not available, in large part because most are made in China. Maybe pharmaceuticals will be next. Sure, factories all around the world churn out pills, ointments and syrups, but many of the active ingredients in antibiotics, painkillers, insulin, antidepressant and other medicines come from China. If shipments of these items are delayed because of the coronavirus, the health of tens of millions of people could suffer. That is just one example out of many. So what can we do? We cannot replace the entire existing manufacturing infrastructure with the new one. That will completely dismantle our international supply chains. However, we can use new effective ways of managing and handling the supply chains, so that when the next pandemic hits us hard, we will not run out of life essential goods and medical supplies. To make supply chains pandemic proof, we have three options. First, and the basic one, having large inventories. The multi-country manufacturing we talked about became possible due to two things: free trade policies in global markets and due to the advances in transportation, technology and communication. Because of them, shipping costs plummeted and suppliers managed to keep the supply coming without much disruption. On the other hand, inside the factories, many corporations around the world started using sophisticated software sensors and artificial intelligence to speed things up along the assembly lines. Now parts or components can arrive immediately before they are inserted into cars, MRI machines and computers. From getting the supply of raw materials and components to assembling them, everything became so fast that corporations just did not give much importance to having goods stocked inside their inventories or warehouses. These lean manufacturing techniques that seek to reduce inventories, workers, idle moments, and mistakes are not useful in times of crisis. They leave companies in short supply of products and suppliers when supply chains are disrupted. In many corporations, due to coronavirus, inventories have fallen from enough to last weeks to enough to last days, and in some cases enough to last just hours. Therefore, industries must make themselves able to get components from multiple places and multiple suppliers. They should be prepared to pay more for backup options and to keep larger inventories on hand. Even the governments should consider building strategic stockpiles not only of petroleum and medical equipment but of other critical resources such as the minerals that are used for manufacturing advanced technologies. And to find out from where exactly a country or a corporation gets all of its supplies, it must invest in mapping the supply chains, and that is our second option. Supply chain mapping is the process of engaging across companies and suppliers to document the exact source of every material, every process, and every shipment involved in bringing goods or products to market. If corporations are well aware of the exact locations and shipping routes of their suppliers, then it becomes easy for them to find alternative options in the times of crisis. Despite numerous supply chain upheavals inflicted by disasters in the past decade, including the eruption of volcano in Iceland, the Japanese earthquake and tsunami, Thailand floods and hurricanes Maria and Harvey, most companies still found themselves unprepared for the COVID-19 pandemic. Even a month after the first COVID-19 patient was reported, many companies were still in data collection and assessment mode. They were manually trying to identify which of their suppliers had a site in the specific lockdown regions of China. But if companies and corporations start investing in supply chain mapping, they will have better visibility into the structure of their supply chains. Instead of scrambling at the last minute, they will have a lot of information at their fingertips within minutes of potential disruption. They will know exactly which suppliers, sites, parts, and products are at risk. That will allow them to put themselves first in line to secure constrained inventory and capacity at alternate sites. Even after knowing the importance of supply chain mapping, many companies were unprepared because the mapping process is expensive and it needs a lot of human capital. To solve that, we have a third option: blockchain and location intelligence. Making use of blockchain and location intelligence technologies will allow supply chain managers to better identify risk and respond early when a pending supply disruption arises. Geospatial and location intelligence technologies can help pinpoint the flow of both primary and alternate materials.
Solve the problems of the future. Location intelligence uses spatial information to empower understanding, insights, decision-making, and prediction. It has applications everywhere, from retail site selection and solving traffic bottlenecks to maintaining and repairing vital infrastructure. Location-based insights are used in many ways. They can create safer, more efficient supply chains. Growers can trace spoiled crops back to the field from which they were picked.
We are in the era where every movement leaves a digital footprint behind. Already today, countries around the world are using advanced location technologies to monitor the movements of individuals to assess vulnerabilities and hotspots. Several governments are using location information of individuals using mobile data, and this has helped them to predict and control the spread of the coronavirus within and across populations. We can extend this digital tracer to every good, commodity or exchange that touches the global supply chain. For example, to solve the short supply of PPE kits, in future by using location intelligence we can examine its supply chain, which involves raw materials, industrial chemicals and shipping routes that touch dozens of countries in nearly every continent. With the help of location intelligence, corporations can have all this information handy. Then comes the blockchain technology, which can be used to track and secure orders and deliveries and also to respond to existing or predicted supply chain threats transparently and efficiently.
When blockchain is applied to a simplified supply chain, the potential improvements are obvious. In theory, every participant of the supply chain can access one linked, encrypted, and validated information set, providing everyone involved with elevated efficiencies and guaranteed data integrity.
I do not claim to be an expert supply chain manager. However, I tried my best to make you guys aware of all the future possibilities. For further research, you can visit the important links and scholarly articles I have mentioned down below in the description. Hi guys, this was a short clip from my recent documentary Post-Coronavirus World. This documentary is about making our world pandemic proof. In that documentary, I have covered all the areas we need to work on if we want to create an efficient global healthcare system that can not only fight the pandemic but can also prevent it from happening. If you want to watch that entire documentary, click on this link above.